Hello guys, day 5. Today I thought I would talk really quickly about what happens when life gets hard, what happens when business gets hard, right? The truth is, when something gets hard, when we face challenges or we face problems, we have two choices, right? We either have the choice to accept it and find some kind of calm, some kind of peace, some way of accepting the situation for what it is. Because at the end of the day, we either change it or we accept it, right? So is there a way that we can come to peace with it? Is there a way that we can find solace? Is there a way that we can, create vibe boosters or whatever it is to be able to get through the situation? Because sometimes the situation we are in, we can't change it, right? There are external factors outside of us that keep us in that situation. So we have to accept it. The second choice that we have is we can change it, right? Now, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes changing it requires us really putting on, hi, Melissa, our big girl pants, right? It really is scary sometimes. And Melissa, you would know what this is because you've just done it yourself, right? Sometimes it's going to require hard decisions. Sometimes it's going to be letting people go. Sometimes it's going to be letting something go that maybe we've been working on it for 4 years, right? And it's not our thing. It's not what we want to do. So it's going to require us changing something and maybe starting from scratch. I remember when I was deciding with the foundation, what was I going to do? I had to sit down. I had to look at all things, right? I had to look at the fact that I had a big staff in Africa, right, that were depending on me for income. I had to look at it that I had a humanitarian project. There were people that were relying on me for food, right? I had to look at my marriage. I had to look at every single aspect of it. And I had to make some really hard decisions. And sometimes we have to do that. We have to make decisions that are hard for us. And sometimes those decisions that we make are going to have us back to square one and starting. Here's the thing though. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, Ed Milet, he's my playlist at the moment. And he was talking about, that starting from scratch is never starting from scratch. And one of his guests was talking about, I want you to sit down with a piece of paper and I want you to write every challenge that you have faced in the last 5 years or 10 years or your whole life, right? Write them down and see how many things you've actually survived. Because sometimes the thing that we're in now that we're blowing up isn't actually as big as some of the other things that we have survived. Like I have survived being held at gunpoint, right? I've survived being attacked. Like I've survived some major things. And sometimes the decision that we're standing in is nowhere near as big as the other things that we have survived. And that can sometimes give us the courage that we need to change, right? Now, it might be a case of, well, what are the pros and cons? And I remember a book, Stop Worrying and Start Living. I think it was Dale Carnegie that wrote it, right? And he said, write a list of everything. What's the worst case scenario? Like for the foundation, I could be humiliated. I could feel like a failure, right? I'd have to tell people. I'd have to face hard decisions. I'd have to write down all the worst case scenarios. And for me, like the foundation, the worst case scenario was everybody would unfriend me. Well, Melissa's still here, so not everybody unfriended me, right? The worst case scenario was that, well, I would end up homeless and broke and, well, did that, survived that, right? So sometimes the things that we are fearing, we will survive if it did happen, right? Because everything is figure-outable, as Marie Forleo says. And you know what? If you don't survive, you won't know, right? Will it be hard? Absolutely. There have been bitching hard moments since I shot the foundation. There have been bitching hard moments in my business right now where we have to make decisions, right? Does this work for us? Is it in alignment with who we are? Because here's the funny thing. Sometimes we start something and then who we are changes along the process, right? We level up. And then as we level up, guess what happens? Our goals change. Our vision changes. Our personality changes. How we want to do things changes, which means sometimes that we have to stop something and start something else. And Melissa, drop it in the comments. You would know what this means, right? If something's not working, we either accept it and find ways to deal with the energy around the situation that we're in, or we go, nope, screw it. Stop, evaluate, and change it. And yes, some of those decisions are going to be hard, right? So like when the tiny house, right? I'm not going to lie. Building a tiny house and spending months and months and months to build a tiny house and packing up your entire house putting it into storage, and then a couple of days before you're meant to leave, being told that the people that you trusted to build the trailer didn't build it in a way that it could actually drive, then that's really heartbreaking, right? Straight up truth, really heartbreaking to have to ring the owner of the property that you were in and say, hey, guess what? Can I move back into the property because shit hit the fan, right? Sometimes you're going to have these moments where shit's going to hit the fan, where you get a goal. Like I set a goal last year to have a tiny house. I have a tiny house, right? Sometimes the goal is not going to work out, right? And we have to readjust. So I can sit and sulk, not going to lie. Some days I have sat and sulk about the tiny house, right? Or I can go, okay, well, it was here for a reason. I don't know what that reason is yet. But when that reason shows itself, I'll be ready, right? So are we going to accept the situation and find energetic strategies, find temporary goals maybe until the situation can be changed? Or are we going to change it and go, okay, I've started at rock bottom before. I can start at rock bottom again. I can rebuild anything, right? Like I have a friend, the lady that I was with yesterday, she legit packed her car up, got rid of everything in her house and moved nearly 2,000 kilometers away from where she was. And she succeeded. Was it hard? Absolutely. It was hard, but she did it, right? So sometimes things we're fearing are not actually something that we should be afraid of, right? It's not something that we should be afraid of because everything is figure outable. We will survive. If it's a hard decisions, it may be hard for a period of time, but it will get easier, right? But I can tell you something else that really sucks, not living in your truth, not having the freedom that you want to have, right? That really sucks. Sometimes it sucks more. The cost of staying where you are sometimes sucks a lot more than the cost of changing it and flipping it on its end. So I thought that would be my message today. Are you going to change it? Or are you going to find ways to deal with it and keep moving forward? Because there are, straight truth, there are some situations where you cannot change it, right? I'm not going to lie, there are situations, right? So in those moments, we have to decide, okay, well, how are we going to emotionally handle the situation? Because we can either change it or we can handle our reaction to it, right? So how do we survive in that moment? Or do we go, nope, I'm strong. I will figure this out. I'm going to make a big decision and I'm going to change it. So that's the message for today, guys. You know, 2 choices in the hard moments. Change it or change our reaction to it. Have an amazing day, guys. Bye for now.